Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am your Ice Dragon, Rayron VR. Today got another manga spotlight video today. Today we've got Black Clover, Volume 1. So we've got Viz Media and Shonen Jump. It is rated T for teen. And let's go and take a look at the back here and see what we got. Alright, Asta is a young boy who dreams of becoming the greatest mage in the kingdom. Only one problem: he can't use any magic. Luckily for Asta, he receives the incredibly rare 5-leaf clover grimoire that gives him the power of anti-mage. Can someone who can't use magic really become the Wizard King? One thing's for sure: Asta will never give up. Alright. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right into it. All right, so with that, guys, we're going to be talking about spoilers. So if you don't want to get spoiled, feel free to watch this video at a later time. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So pretty much we just have two protagonists when it comes to Black Clover here. We've got Yuno and we got Asta. Yuno is this individual in the back here holding the book. And then we've got Asta, which is basically holding this sword of the grimoire of the 5-leaf clover, which we'll get into here in a minute. So the story starts out that we basically visit them at a village, and we get a little bit of backstory of the world. We get a backstory of the Wizard King and how they're protecting all of the lands, and it is destined that there's supposed to be another Wizard King, essentially. And these two individuals, the best way I can describe it is that they are surrogate brothers, essentially. They were abandoned in front of a church that the nun essentially helped them raise and work around the church and so forth. And so we start to realize that Yuno is a character that he's pretty calm, pretty nice. And we've got Asta here, who is definitely very gun ho. Doesn't really think before he acts. He just goes and acts. And he's very motivated. He's a hard worker. And unfortunately, though, he doesn't have any magic, which proves to be a little bit of a problem because as they age to the 15 years old, there is this particular award ceremony that they get basically their books. Because essentially, it is implied that all of these characters in this world, they're basically mages, and they get their abilities from these books called grimoires. And so, from these books, depending on the ability of them, they have the capability to join the Magic Knights, which joins the Wizard King to basically defeat these monsters and so forth to protect the lands. And so we kind of get a time jump into their award ceremony. And one thing I want to point out is that this award ceremony meant so much to me. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the first bookmarker here that I've got and take a look of this panel. And I'll bring it into focus here, but basically this is a giant wall of books of all of the grimoire. And it feels like that these grimoires basically choose you, and that's how you kind of destined on what type of ability that you're going to be. And sometimes you can be destined to be, very powerful, potentially be the Wizard King. But this particular panel was drawn out so well and done so greatly that it gave me the vibes of Harry Potter. When we had our main characters of Harry Potter and everyone else kind of going through Hogwarts for the first time. This is the same kind of vibes I got. And I mean, you even got the wizard here that, man, it reminds me so much of Harry Potter in these particular scenes. So definitely quite stunning. And I love the animation of them getting their books. Just look at this. All the books going to their respective casters and mages. Really cool. really well done how it brings this environment to life. The illustrations are really spot on with this. And so our two main protagonists, he is awarded the rare four-leaf clover grimoire, which everyone was speculating that the last Wizard King was a four-leaf clover caster, and so basically is given this very rare ability, while opposite of him, Astra doesn't get any books, and he's outcasted a little bit, made fun of, saying that, well, maybe next year. And the thing about Asta is that he's not going to give up. He's going to keep pushing forward. He's going to do the best that he can do so that way he can get to his goal of being or to try to be the Wizard King. And come to find out, here also wants to be the Wizard King. And what's interesting about it is that you get this dilemma between the two. And it's like, is smart. He's really smart, calm, collective. And he realizes that Asta is going to be his nemesis, essentially. And it's definitely building up to that. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in probably the end of the story. I don't know if it's finished or not. I have to double check with that. But definitely quite interesting, the opposite polarity of these two characters. Kind of yin and yang in a way, which is pretty cool. And so after they get their books, there's this mysterious thief that basically corners and traps him and basically steals the four-leaf clover. But then we got Asta here being a very bro of him, surrogate brother, best way I can describe it. And he basically tries to save not and he tries with his might, but he has no magic. And just when you think the thief is going to win, oh no, there is another book that comes to him, and this is called the fifth leaf clover, which represents the devil. And he is basically given the book itself. The ability basically transforms into this black sword that he's able to wield. And with that sword, he basically defeats the thief, giving the Gilmore back to And you can see the rivalry between the two. And knows that Asta is going to be a competitor when it comes to becoming the Wizard King. And so after that event, we go into our next main kind of milestone for these characters, which is called the Magic Knights entrance exam. And this really was pretty cool because these Magic Knights, they work with the Wizard King to defeat the enemies of the kingdom. And when they are first introduced, these captains of each of the Magic Knights kind of groups, it reminded me of so many different things. So right here, this pose. Right here, we've got our captains of each of the Magic Knights sections. There's, they don't particularly say like clans, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to say that they're clans. And so we got the Silver Eagles, we got the Crimson Lion Kings, we've got the Black Bulls. And I really adore this picture right here because this panel of all the captains right next to each other looking down at the potential new recruits for each of the sections, this reminded me of so many different other stories that kind of did this kind of diorama. We've got Harry Potter with each of the four houses. The one that reminds me even most is Warhammer 40K when it comes to the Primarchs. Man, seeing these gave me instant, just reminding me of, there's an image of all the Primarchs next to each other during a grand parade of when the Emperor was successful in the Orc invasion. And this gave me so much good vibes. So different characters, different traits, different sexes, it is great to see. And I am definitely a fan of this story already. And so over here we've got William Vengeance, which is the captain of the Golden Dawn, which is basically kind of your quick way to get to the Wizard King. She's actually um, nominated to become the next Wizard King. And so we've got all these different clans essentially, and it's really cool, really cool. And so they basically go through all of our candidates for these respective clans. They go through a plethora of trials, from learning how to fly a broom to fighting against each other and just demonstrating their abilities. And so it was very clear that Ashta just didn't have any abilities besides the sword. And when he was challenged, like one-on-one duels and so forth, it was clear that he can win, but he can't do anything else. And so that definitely hindered um, the results of him, unfortunately. And so when all of this trial is has come to an end, it came for each individual candidate to step up to the captains of the particular groups of the Magic Knights. And then, depending on their abilities, the captains will raise their hand and see if they would want that particular individual. If there's more than one captain that wanted them, then the individual had a choice of which captain to go with. It definitely reminded me of Shark Tank a little bit. You know, you've got the investor that is pitching their invention, and then you try and get one of the Shark Tanks to essentially give them a loan to produce said item for a stake of it. It gave the same atmosphere. You had these captains that were basically wanting to have these particular recruits for their respective groups. So, basically, being given, for Clover, he's very smart, tactical, and so forth. All of the captains raise their hand, and it's quite a sight to see because it's very rare that you have all of the captains wanting their particular person. And so he goes with the Golden Dawn, because he realizes that that's probably going to be his quickest way to becoming a Wizard King. And what's interesting about that is poor Ashta, nobody wanted him except for one captain, and he was a captain of the Black Bulls. And what's interesting about the selection is that you got two different heroes' journey. You've got a journey that's basically given to a person and probably the easiest path to become the king. And then you got another individual who is has no powers, is struggling to get through the system, and now he has to go probably the toughest way to get to the Wizard King. And that in the writing in itself is great, because now you get to see like the easy path versus the hard path. And it was very well done in the personification of these heroes' journeys of the very good and the very bad. And so we start to follow the path of Ashta for the rest of the volume. We don't get to see Uno for the rest of this. And so Ashta basically goes to the Black Bulls, and he basically gets a type of really crazy homecoming. It's very chaotic. The members of the group are kind of ruggish, hard-nosed type of individuals, and Ashta basically had to prove himself. And there was one member of the Black Bulls that basically had a trial for him to become a Black Bull. And that's when we kind of realized that Ashta's sword has a dual purpose. He can negate attacks, and he can deflect attacks like a baseball bat with the flat side of the sword, which is pretty cool that he can, negate magic and repel magic, which is pretty cool because it's basically, the way I like to call it, is the anti-meta sword, because it basically stops any type of other meta type of spells, which is pretty cool for an individual who has no spells to begin with. So, great story. I just love it's a great combination, great pairing of abilities. I've never seen anything like this before. This is Truly a unique story that I am definitely liking. And so he proves himself, and then he becomes an official member of the Black Bull. And so we continue on, and we start to notice that these particular individuals, they have certain issues. And we also meet another character by the name of Nicole Sylvia. And basically, her ability is that she can do magic, but it's uncontrolled. It doesn't go in the direction she wants it to. It always veers off. It's very unstable. And it became very clear that her magic was uncontrollable to the point that it almost consumes her. But luckily, our protagonist here, Ashta, was able to stop and cancel the ability. And it was quickly realized that the Black Bulls is basically a group of mages that have all sorts of problems. And that was the great thing about it, is that with that kind of trope, I guess is the best way to describe it, it reminded me of the Bad Batch. It's the only thing that comes close to the Black Bulls, that you got these mages that don't have like the stereotypical magic. They have issues controlling with their magic, but they still get the job done in very unconventional ways. Boom, that is, if you've seen Star Wars, the Bad Batch, it is basically that, which is very cool. Very cool. And so our new group of ragtag mages go on to the first mission. It was supposed to be hunting boars, but then they find a village that's basically under siege by an evil mage that has basically ice shards. And he was going to kill this village because it was very typical racist, poverty type of people. That was basically driven by that. And our heroes go in, the Black Bulls go in and try to save them. And we actually meet a antagonist that could defeat Ashta, because with the ice shards, he can make unlimited amounts of them and then come from many different directions, which basically our Ashta here cannot really defend against. So that's basically one of the main weaknesses that Ashta has, is that he is very prone to AoE type of abilities. And so that's where our teammate here, Noelle, comes into play. As she matures, as she grows, her book actually gets written into with more abilities. And so as she grows, her book grows. And we kind of saw that because she matured by saying that she wants to protect the people. She wants to protect evil people that were attacking these villages, because she is also technically royalty as well. And so because of that maturity, and then she finally says, "Oh, I'm proud to be a Black Bull," she is now, her book was inscribed for her to control her abilities, and she was able to defend against the ice shard, allowing our main protagonist here, Ashta, to defeat the evil mage. And that is where book one ends. Boy, what a great read this book was. As far as storytelling, very, very good, very unique aspects to it. I love these two individual characters. I love that you have a personification of, like, you can take the easy path to where you want to go, or you're going to have to take the very hard, difficult path to get to where you want to go. But to the end, I'm very interested to see how Yuno's character is going to be developed in all this, because it feels like that all of his abilities have just been simply given to him and he's been given the easy path. I want to see him struggle with that, and I want to see these two dueling in the future, because I really want to see how that develops between these two characters. But again, there are so many cool references within this manga, from Harry Potter to Warhammer to the Back Batch. This manga's got a lot going for it. So I do have volume 2. I'm going to continue on with this series because I really and thoroughly enjoyed this. And this was the winner of my Twitter poll, because I was wondering what you guys wanted me to review. So yeah, definitely great recommendation from you guys. So you guys nailed it. But with it, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you got any manga suggestions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you feel supporting any of my work, I've got a lot of links down below that you guys can support the Icey Fellowship. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.